Okay, welcome to the Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting for October 1st. It is 7:09 p.m. We're getting a little bit of a late start, waiting on other members to come, but hopefully another one or two will join us. We are still meeting remotely due to the ongoing COVID-19 epidemic and orders by the governor's office. So this meeting is conducted by Zoom and is being recorded and will be on the town website as well as the Easthampton media site. Present we have Cindy Palmer and Francine Tishman, myself, Chris Fowles, and Ken Camilla, our PVPC consultant. And I'm pretty sure Christina Madsen will be joining us when she's done with another meeting she had.
And will that will make a quorum?
That would be our quorum. That would give us 4 out of the 7. So that will be okay. And Jim may have just forgotten. I don't know. I don't have a number for him.
I do. I will text him.
Okay. All right. And Brittany, I'm not sure where she's at. And Margaret, so let's see. Yeah. So if we have Christina, that would get us the quorum. But so for now, I don't see anybody on here for open meeting. Yeah. Comments from the public. There is nobody here waiting. So why don't we skip over the minutes right now and other business and just jump right into the presentation that Ken has organized for us to further continue the discussion of the results of the community survey and a deeper analysis perhaps of the raw data that he was able to do and some of the cross-tabbing he was able to do continuing on from our last meeting. So Ken, let me turn it over to you. I think the share screen is available for you.
Okay.
Need it?
All right, let me just open these documents. So I think since the last meeting, knowing that one of the goals of this process is to present something to the town, the select board. And so, you know, what I sent to the committee a couple of minutes ago, an hour ago, was a draft presentation, which I think is a good starting point with what the committee should be presenting to the select board. So I think, you know, it's a review of the process, understanding where we are to a certain point, and then obviously we'll also go over the survey. Whether or not this supplements or this needs to be in as deep as we think it should be is another question. Because I think that even just a presentation of the survey report, whatever that looks like, you know, similar to what was presented at the last meeting, which is the 896 responses and what that looked like in that previous PDF, could just be supplemental to what the presentation would look like. But since the last meeting, I sure hope that I saved it. Here it is. Since the last meeting, there were some cross tabulations that I did, and I will let you know that, Chris, I think it says host disabled. I will let you know that this, the survey program does not have the ability to do cross tabs, so I was doing it. And it's not, and it was doing Excel work, and I haven't done a lot of this since grad school, maybe.
You should be able to share now, Ken. Go ahead.
Okay.
Here comes Christina. Hold on. Hi, Christina. Hey, Christina, can you hear us? Hello. Christina, are you on? I see your name, but I don't hear you. She's still connecting here. Hold on.
Yeah, I see. Ken, you said you sent this out a couple of minutes ago?
I sent the raw data last night at like 11 something. That was the Excel spreadsheet, but within the last hour or 2 hours, it was the power PDF. There was a PDF of some slides as well as a hard copy of some of the free responses to the,
Right, yeah, that I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think any of us had a chance to really look at it, but
Yeah.
Christina, can you hear us okay?
Yep, I'm
Oh,
here.
good, great,
Hi,
thanks for
Christina.
joining, really appreciate it. So with you available, we now have a quorum. We don't have Jim, Brittany, or Margaret yet tonight, so we decided to skip over the minutes and other business and just jump right into Ken so that we don't make him wait and let him do his updated presentation for us. So that's where we're just getting started.
Great.
So I think a lot of the, and it was just doing the actions of the crosstabs and creating some percentages. I haven't really been able to do the analysis on whether or not, it shows anything specific. But let's just take question 6, for example, which was, how do you believe Southampton should evolve by 2040? The question was how this correlated with the amount of years that someone lived in Southampton. So
Any way to make that a little bit bigger, or is that gonna,
I think I can.
so,
Is that bigger?
yeah, that's better, I think. I don't, yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's better.
it's better.
That's better,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
So, I'm not a statistician. And so, there was a lot of going over some of my notes from grad school with regards to how to do cross-tabbing and whatnot. So taking the 2 data sets and basically doing some filtering and creating a table that showed where my cursor is here, which is the years of residency in town, and then the options for the various ways that Southampton should evolve. So there was the bedroom community, there was the community of diverse housing, that's this one up here, community with a mixed use, a rural residential, similar to what it is like now. And if none of the above, there's a, that's within the worksheet and the raw data that I sent yesterday. But I think, what we would have liked to see was how the people that lived in Southampton longer, what was their most what choice did they choose? And I think what's telling about this is that the largest percentage of the ones that chose that question were from the ones that lived here the shortest amount of time, 0 to 5.
That's interesting.
So, obviously the town has something going for it. If people are moving to Southampton, and I have, I know of people that are wanting to find homes in Southampton because of that. And so, is it surprising? Maybe a little. I think we might have been looking at this, and what should have happened is also just putting the exact what that question is and how I was presented. But looking at this, I don't know if there was anything to.
Just one thing I want to be sure, because if I recall, I don't have the questions in front of me, but I think one of the first question, and maybe it's his 4th or 5th one, were quite similar, but one of them specifically mentioned, I believe it did, mentioned open space, and maybe, did it mention our water supply? I'm trying to think, Christina, that was one that you had suggested some of the wording on.
This one?
There we go, thank you. Diverse housing balances commercial and residential with, ag and open space. Okay, that's the one. So the diverse housing one, and then the first one was rural residential, then bedroom, then community. So the diverse housing with commercial and residential with ag and open space. So number 4, so where does that fall in the midst?
So number 4, which is,
the fourth one down. So that had the second largest answers, number of answers.
yeah. So
28.
that was,
Community diverse housing. So is that in the same order on your chart or no? They don't.
No, it's not.
it's not.
Okay,
Let me,
that's where I was getting confused. Okay. So
But yeah, going back to this one, even though people who resided here from 0 to 5 years represented 43% of the, they chose that as their primary reason to maintain rural residential. The next amount of years, residence years is 6 to 10. That's 24% that picked this as rural residential. That's representing almost 70% of people who only resided here under 10 years likes the rural residential community. Am I reading this correctly?
43% of those that have lived in Southampton from 0 to 5 years answered that answer.
Mm-hmm.
And 24% of those that lived up to from 6 to 10, 24% of those answered that they like rural residential. I'm not sure if that's,
You can't add the two together.
yeah.
Oh,
no,
I see.
you're gonna come up with more than 100% there
Yeah.
if you look at that column.
I'm sorry, okay. So what we have to do is find out how many people are 43% and how many people are 24%, and what is that compared to the 896?
So that is the 60 and 63. So
Oh, I see.
123 respondents divided by the 882 entries.
Oh, okay, that's very
So that
different.
drives it down a lot then.
That's interesting. You know, these are hard, Ken, to make these correlations. You know, I mean, somebody else is going to look at this and they're not going to be able to do that as easily.
Mm-mm.
No.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
I can see that, yeah.
That's the thing with cross tabbing too. But I think, you know, it may confirm some ideas, but this was surprising to me that you have a lot of people that have lived here for a shorter amount of time. And I'm just taking at face value based on that number, that 43% of those that lived in Southampton from up to 5 years really like the way Southampton is set up and would like to see that in the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that's telling, because my first assumption was, the people that have lived here the longest, want to keep it that way.
Yeah. Which, though, if you look down at the bottom, the 41 to 50 and the 50 plus, you've got 40%
Yeah.
in both
You
of those.
still
So
have,
that does track. I mean, it's just hard to sort of verbalize what that really means, maybe. But
Well, actually, if you look at the column above, which totals the number right there,
Mhm.
correct? And your total on that is 310. You compare that to the 894, and that's about 33%, right? So therefore, we could honestly say that 33% of the respondents liked rural residential community.
Yes, actually, it's 35%.
Okay, 35%.
Yeah, because if you look at the aggregate on this sheet,
Oh, there it is. Okay.
yeah, this
right.
this is taking the entirety
There
of the
you go.
data.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Almost don't think you should show the previous one you just showed there, which
Yeah.
isn't a pie chart. It's too confusing. What do you think about that, you guys?
Well, that was so the thing with this one was the request to see by age breakdown,
Yeah.
or not age, rather
years
the
in
length
town.
of residency,
yeah,
and what those answers were.
yeah,
I do think that, if you want to do a cross tabulation, and present it in a way that doesn't call out certain demographics or certain, I don't know. I mean, I think it's mostly demographics that may shine some insight, but cross-tabbing can be an important tool depending on how you use it. But so that was question 6. There was, my notes say question 9, which was age. Can you see this?
No,
No, a little bit bigger.
there you go.
Okay. So
Better.
this was based on the age of the resident. Are there sufficient housing options for you in Southampton?
Wow.
And so as you get older,
Wow.
I mean, those numbers diminished a little more so, but the breakdown was, let's see. Let me share this screen.
These are the ages of the people who responded to the survey.
Correct.
How does that line up with the age distribution from the census? I mean, is this really representational?
We didn't ask.
I would have to look at the census data with regards to at least, the most recent one, which I know is in the OSRP. But are you asking, Francine, that, well, because this is a sample of the respondents. So it's not, I think if we were to look at the entirety of the respondent sample,
Hi, Jim. Sorry, I didn't catch you earlier.
Sorry, folks. I'm on vacation. I'm out of sorts.
That's okay. Thanks for coming in. We're just kind of getting started looking at a couple of the crosstabs that Ken was trying to do.
The word is try, Jim. It was challenging. So what is your age? Francine asked about the sample. And, I think this is a pretty good sample of the people that responded to the survey, where if you were to take ages 19 through 40 or under 19 through 40, that is almost a quarter or almost a fifth, almost 20%. And then you have the remaining sections of that. And so that was the age of the respondents. If you were to look at this crosstab data, this shows of the respondents and of those that have identified as these age groups, within these age groups, these were their breakdowns.
And this is whether they were satisfied with their current housing. Is that the question?
That's correct. And this was survey, this was the breakdown. So you had 83% that answered yes. And of those 83%, this is how it broke down. The other screen is how it broke down.
Okay. I think, and this, I don't know how difficult this is, but of the 870 some people who responded, can we compare that to the age distribution of the census to know if this group really mirrors the residents? Do you know what I'm saying? Because they could say, well, it was everybody over 60 answered the survey. I'm looking for the weightedness of this data, given the age distribution of people who responded to the survey versus the town residents.
And this is from the 2010 census, or?
Well, there's some estimates. We, in the OSRP, I think we had some 2018 population estimates, and that was through the American Community Survey.
Okay.
So we
And we
can,
just did another survey and it was due in January. Where did that data go? Everybody
That's the
completing
one,
census-
that's the one Emily did.
that's the OSRP survey.
No, 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 no. The one that we turned into Lucy every year. Don't we have to turn in something?
Oh,
That's just-
census.
Yes.
That's, okay, that's the town, yeah, that's the
This
town
town
one.
one, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, the town one, not the big 10-year one, yeah.
right. Not the big 10-year one.
Yeah, the town one should be already done, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can, I don't know if it's gonna break down does it break down individual like children? And, you know, if a household is supposed to submit a town census,
Yeah. Yeah.
would it break down, or would it just ask how many, you know, people live in your home? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember what the form looks like.
yeah.
It's usually populated and all you do is verify that the information is there or not. Or
Yeah,
add
and
any
I actually, because I filled one out and I don't recall it asking my age.
age. Yeah, you're probably right. Okay. So even if we go with the 2018 that we had.
Yeah, we can see how it coordinates, you know, and how I probably would do that is take the, you know, what those raw numbers are and the estimates, and then divide by the amount of total.
Right.
But I don't know if it's broken down the same way that it's broken down here, because sometimes it can be broken down differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Which makes it a little more.
Brittany, welcome in.
Thank you. Sorry, a little late.
That's okay, we're just kind of getting going here, so. So this though, and it looks like, from this, it looks like most everybody's satisfied with their current housing, which I don't know if I totally believe all that, but.
You don't believe it. I believe it.
Well, I think what's interesting is on the extremes, I just was running some numbers with my calculator. On the extremes, age 20 to 29 and 70 to 79, the percentages go up a little more. And they seem to go up more actually on the senior end rather than the younger end, which is interesting. You know, the belief that there's not enough housing for younger people in town. We have anecdotal data, a couple of our own members who've expressed that,
Right,
but that doesn't come out so strongly in this survey.
it doesn't show that is what I'm
Right.
not, yeah.
Right, and even in the senior levels, it doesn't show as strongly as I thought it might.
What else do I have here?
Wow.
Oh, so question 19, this was, let's see.
That was the priorities for future development or something?
Yeah, this was fun to put together. You wanted to add, I think the request at the last meeting was to aggregate support and strongly support based on the, oh geez. Wait, let me just quickly see what the
And-
top of these columns are.
And if I remember, this would be the question that talked about, would you be interested in the broadband, in the solar, in the greenway, in public safety complex, whatever, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the level of support for those items. And then the following question in the survey was to prioritize those.
Right.
Okay. But this was, and I think this is probably something that could be helpful to bring forward as priorities for the town, right? So, man, now I can't remember what this section is. But even if you look at like these larger ones, let me just quickly, that was question 19.
So what you're saying is you've put support and strongly support, so that would have been number 4 and number 5. Anybody that ranked those that way, you would have combined the two, is that right?
That's correct. just share this. Which, yeah, this is literally just adding those percentages from this. So that was an exercise I probably didn't really have to do. Anyway, so yeah, it would just be aggregating these for each one, and those are presented in that previous picture that I showed you. So with that said, you had 70% either support and strongly support the public internet broadband service, 65% for pursuing renewable energy generation, 68% for purchasing land to preserve open space, 75% for the acquiring land and completing the bike path from Sheldon's to the Easthampton line, and then 66% for the developing bicycle paths and greenways that link open spaces and neighborhoods.
And Ken, what's the public safety column?
Public safety column is, let's see, 1, 2, 3. This one, 54%.
Thank you.
And what's 70% again? The first one?
The first one was the internet,
Broadband, yeah.
broadband.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
Developing our own utility, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's
I
good.
mean, I think, you know, they both, if I recall, you know, I think the committee assumed, and maybe hearing from someone else, that this item, the bike paths to Sheldon's, was probably going to be the number one, which it is. I don't know if the select board or others in town thought that there was a sentiment of, you know, strong support for internet and broadband service.
Mm.
I think if you just, you know, follow the town Facebook page and you watch all the complaints about
Charter.
the signal from Carter,
Yeah.
and some of our own meetings are all interrupted and disrupted as a result of where people live. And
Mhm. And Ken, what are 44 and 42, the other two columns there?
The other two is buying land to build a public safety complex is 44, and 42 is sewer water provision in commercial areas.
Oh, okay. You said public safety was 54. So what's 54 then?
Oh no. So 44 was buying land to build a public safety complex. 54 was build or repurpose existing municipal building for a multi-use meeting and community center.
Oh, wow. So, okay. So what that tells us, interesting. Wow. So the public safety complex and public water sewer are the two lowest on the totem pole right here. That's going to be a surprise to people.
Yeah.
That will definitely be a surprise.
Well, but it will be a surprise, but you don't forget this whole thing was not to redo the master plan, but to put the priorities of where we put our
Oh, I
top
know.
efforts. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've just been having my ear full of public safety complex and how important that is and why it's been, you know, asked for 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just surprised that it's not at least in the top three.
Well, I think what happens, Chris, and I can speak from my own perspective, you know, housing is important for me, but so you get advocates talking in your ear all the time, but that's not necessarily everybody who's talking.
Right, yeah.
That's
No,
Right.
well, that's interesting. And I wonder, see, now this is the one too. I mean, I guess what we want to, I don't know if we want to avoid it or we want to prove it. I don't know which is the right word, but given, okay, so if I'm understanding this, 75% were for purchasing the land for the greenway. So are we susceptible to somebody saying, oh, well, that's only, the people under 40 that want that are gonna, use their bikes and whatever else? Are people gonna see this as skewed somehow from an age perspective?
Not if you can break it down by age and show.
But that's why I think it's important to translate this, if we can, to how this compares with the age distribution among the population.
Uh-huh.
That will show you the strength of each of I think, of these
I
responses.
mean, what can happen, and what I tried to do with, and I only did this with one because I would have had to do these individually, but like the next tab, which is a crosstab of the question 13, but the component was about the apartment buildings. Was that a product or a housing product for the town? What was the support for that, or lack of support, or oppose or strongly support?
Yeah.
And as Francine mentioned, there was an assumption about ages, answering that they strongly oppose certain types of housing products, and this one is specific to apartments, and you have 50% of the respondents between the ages of 20 and 29, and 51 between the ages of 50 and 59. That you can do the same for that other one. Whether or not I think Chris brought it up, was, do you want to, is there something that you want to suggest when you're, finalizing this implementation update, this update to the implementation component of your master plan, that, it should be weighted less because we analyzed that it was a portion of the population for this or that. That's a question, and that's a way you want to figure out how you communicate that, and whether or not that's worthwhile to communicate. I don't know. It's good to know, and definitely I can at least do that crosstab, and probably now that I was able, by the end of the end of the night last night, getting through these crosstabs, I may be able to do that a little more quickly.
Yeah.
But
I can't believe this crazy survey doesn't allow you to do crosstabs more automatically.
Yeah, when I learned of that, we got the basic survey software, not the pro.
Anybody that's got it, shoot our data over to them and let them do it.
I'm going to throw something out here, and I don't know if this will work, but we do know of an individual in town whose expertise is in software engineering. And who I'm thinking of. Some of you maybe know who I'm thinking of.
Yep.
He's a person that emails me 5 times a day. He's a very energetic man, but I know he's been doing some stuff. I just wonder if he was to take this, and if he could do it faster. I don't know.
Probably. If you know of people that can maneuver through an Excel spreadsheet in this way, because the thing is, all of the data is there. It probably just needs to be cleaned up in a certain way. You all have it, the raw data, and then you saw the tabs on the bottom, which are my cross tabs. They are correct in that the logic behind coming to those answers are correct. Whether or not there are other analyses that you think could be helpful to support or not support certain, certain perspectives that you're arriving at with regards to prioritizing the goals and strategies in your master plan, that's another thing. I mean, the data is there to confirm or reassess how you identify those, but
So would you say that that person would have to take the raw data and do essentially what you were doing, or?
Yeah, or maybe he or she has the data, or
A
has
software.
something, has some other program
Okay. Well, I'll
that,
tell you what, I'm gonna be catching up with him in the morning, so I'll find out.
yeah.
Okay, so for this though, because I mean, I guess to me, this question 19, guys, is kind of the end all be all. I mean, this is, I think,
Yes.
what people are waiting for, right? I mean,
Yes.
and feel free to tell me I'm wrong, but I think this is what people are wanting to know is like, what are we working towards here? What are we aiming toward in terms of overall development priorities? And then the other big priority is what are we talking about in terms of housing options? I think both of those are, the real.
It's very clear based on the aggregate that the town doesn't want to, explore making it easier to develop multifamily housing. There is the majority of the respondents, and I'm just going to go back to this.
Yeah, go back to your, because some people weren't here last time to see your slides on those things. So,
Which one?
well, whichever, wherever you want to start, I don't care.
Do you want me to do the PowerPoint slides that I put together, or?
Or I was just thinking about the housing one in particular.
Oh,
But
that was this.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know. Anybody, Christina, any thoughts here in terms of what we're talking about with, back on the 19 one for a second of everything from the sewer and greenway and solar and, is it going to be helpful to know age-wise how people have answered that? Is that going to make any difference to people or not?
And should we be zooming in on that factor?
Yeah.
In other
Yeah,
words,
I don't know. Does it make a difference? I think that is one of the answers to that are, that is a very important question. The results of that are
Yeah.
quite important. So age-wise, I suppose it would be interesting and might be useful to us if it was information that's easily had.
Mm.
But how it would actually impact how the town moves forward, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess this in its own right, if we look at the bottom category percentages here, I mean, it's clear the Greenway came up top and then internet broadband second, and then what's
Open space, I think, came up third.
open space
Yes.
and then solar. So
Ken, I would like you to just check those columns again. I thought repurposing the town buildings, municipal buildings, was the last priority. So you had said that was 54% and safety complex was 44. Could you just confirm?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up that other screen because that would show what that is. Let's see. So if you were to just add these, actually, that would give you kind of that closeness to that other spreadsheet that we were looking at. That was the 54%.
Oh.
In the other spreadsheet was this right here. And then you had the
safety complex is
safety
16
complex was
and
this
26.
one. The thing is, you have a majority of the people that strongly support that, but then you have neutral.
A lot of
neutral.
A lot of neutral, but also look at the number of strongly opposed compared to any other item, any other topic.
That is true. That's that's enlightening to my mind because of how much emphasis has been put on that public safety complex, the urgency that has been conveyed.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the issues that we have, we really do have to report this, is we already bought property for a public safety complex and just found out it wasn't suitable after the fact.
What do you mean?
That's this, yeah, the property behind the town, the existing town fire hall.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, I think, to that end, again, the reason why the master plan implementation committee exists is to work on all of those goals and strategies. So if that's identified as something back in 2013, maybe there's a reassessment of, based on Francine's, comment, is there an urgency to now find, a replacement for that piece of land that they found that didn't work? But the select board and the town have been working towards that because that is an identified goal and strategy.
Yeah.
I think this exercise is to help kind of maneuver through that, but again, that you're not going to eliminate any goals and strategies from your plan.
Right.
True. But I think as we're trying to look at a real action plan, knowing that we can't take on all 10 of these at once, the idea of trying to prioritize is like, okay, where do we start? Where do we focus our energy? And, these, the top 3 would be probably where we would start in given, a given year. But
Chris,
yeah.
Isn't the purpose of the master plan implementation committee to help, sift through where the priorities are and then refer it back to the certain boards, the select, whatever boards that are responsible for those, not to implement them ourselves. So I think we're just sifting the data. There are clear mandates or strong showings in some of these questions that we can readily send out. And the rest is, I believe, up to the boards who might be interested in those to sort through. And like we were looking, I'm obviously interested in housing. I was looking at in the age groups, the extreme ends, to see what that data told me and whatnot. To me, that's for the housing authority to work through and to try to figure that out and to wrestle with that, because there's no clear, strong recommendation there. I feel we're getting a little too far into the weeds here. The data says what it says. And I feel it's our job to now, I don't know, planning board, this is a pretty strong, there's some real priority here. And that's our work. I feel we're digging a little too deep into things that are beyond our scope.
Not only go to the committee, Jim, it's important for the select board to have this information, I think. They will benefit equally, and it will guide them strongly, I would think. And then of course, onto the committees to actually do the implementation.
I guess I don't disagree with what you said, but I'm looking at this and saying, there's something in the background. I'm looking at it and saying, we can't just drop this on these committees and say, okay, now it's your job. That's what happened before and nothing happened. There has to be a facilitating entity, and that's what I see. Not that we come up with all the answers, but I do see that the implementation committee is the ones who keep these things moving forward among and between those responsible committees and boards.
Is that really what happened before? I thought the data was just never looked at, because I mean, shame on those committees if they were given priorities of what to do and then they did nothing.
Well,
I don't think it was so much given priorities as given the master plan, given the goals and strategies, and told to carry them out. And it was a bit daunting, especially for planning. Well, even for historical commission, which was one of the least demanding. with goals and strategies. There was so much on there that it was overwhelming for a small committee with a limited budget. So I think it got lost. I think it was so unwieldy. There was so much information, so many goals and strategies laid out in the master plan that it was just too unwieldy for the committees. So interest fizzled. I know as time went on, the implementation meetings just had fewer and fewer people. So this, our work now to prioritize and try to make it a little more wieldy, more something to be accomplished, should be helpful. I still think it's a huge task to hand out to the committees, though. It's a big undertaking.
Yeah.
Maybe we're talking about the same thing, because I'm not saying that we're done and here's the data, see you later. I'm just saying that I feel that we're wrestling over questions where it's not clear what the priorities are. And I don't know if that's our fight. It's more like we're going through the data. We've all identified this is a really strong priority here. That's what we then say to Board X, hey, here's a real strong priority here. The data clearly shows this is something the town wants to work on. And in areas where it's not clear, I'm not sure if, frankly, as a master plan committee, rather than the subject matter experts within a specific town board, we're the right persons to be digging through that data.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're trying to dig on, I think on this question, maybe I'm wearing half of my select board hat on this one particularly, Jim. I mean, I think this question in particular is of major interest to the select board, because I would see the select board looking at all of this and saying, okay, these are kind of our marching orders. This is what the town feels are the priorities in this rank order. And our plan as a select board is to tackle number 1 and number 2 for the coming fiscal year. And how we're going to do that is to be determined. But that's where this one, I think, has got to be, very, very clear. And I think it will be the thing of probably the most interest to the select board, because it is going to kind of guide what we focus our resources on to move forward. So.
Don't
Right, I think we're
forget,
thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
How long have we been meeting, guys? I mean, it's been over 2 years now, and we spent so much time going through the original master plan, and then ultimately our chairperson, Mike, presented to the select board because we worked so hard to whittle it down. And then now we wanted to understand what the town considered to be the priorities. And also remember that we had the planning board come to one of our meetings, more than one of our meetings, and they had worked on several things and ran into barriers. For example, developing more commercial. Well, we don't have any town sewer, so that was a barrier for moving forward on certain things. I'm in agreement with what Chris just said. This gives order to the select board to know these are the direction that our town says to prioritize. It is interesting because we already bought this small piece of property behind the fire station. I don't know how that all happened, but somebody thought, ooh, good bargain purchase, and went out and bought it, and then discovered that it was very hard to develop, right? I think that's the story I heard. So now, I don't know if that's true, but do you know better, Christina?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Yes, the site preparation turned out, it's ledge. So site preparation was going to turn out to be costly, but ultimately the architect developed, and the committee, the public safety committee, worked on plans for a very nice, fancy public safety complex that was just too expensive. So site prep was going to be over $1 million to get through that ledge. And then, so the total cost was either 12 or 15 million, I can't remember. and the town rejected it. So it wasn't only the site that was unsuitable. That still could be prepared for a public safety complex, but it is more, people just didn't want to spend that much on a public safety complex.
Right, it sort of went forward without giving any budgetary guidance to the architect, and they just designed kind of like
Well, you know,
Taj Mahal.
interestingly, I sat in on a few meetings with that architect. He was just adamant that it couldn't be a more modest building. He really, and the committee members, the public safety committee members bought into that. They did not insist that he come up with something that the town would be more likely to approve. So it wasn't just a poor site. Granted, it's a poor site, but it still could be used. A more modest public safety complex could be put onto it.
Mhm.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Okay, well, do you want to go into like one of the one that had the planning boards on it, or the housing one, and go back to one of those things and see what that looks like again? Or?
I'm interested in the housing too.
Okay.
So the only housing one that I did was the one that we initially talked about, which was the value question about how you wanted to see the town, how you wanted to see the town in 20 years. And then
Right. Okay.
the other one was this item about, because I would have to do this for all responses. And I only chose the one that showed the most significance strongly opposed, which was the apartments. And so that question read, let's see, that's this one. So this was that question read, on a scale of 1 to 5, I would like to see the town provide affordable and accessible housing options by
Right.
promoting development of. And so I filtered out all of the ones for housing or for apartments, and what each of the respondents' ages were and the values that they assigned to that answer. And this is just a general finding, which, as I briefly mentioned earlier, that under 19, well, we'll probably start at 2029, 50% of the respondents strongly opposed affordable and accessible housing options via apartments, which is weird, because, when I was in my 20s, that kind of was you're independent, and well, again, and I also grew up in a place that was a lot more dense, but that is, that's reflecting the second largest amount of the cohort that voted for strongly opposed for that one. So this was the only one that I did with the housing question.
So we don't know what the one is that most everybody did approve, did whatever, accept
So that would have been,
or support rather. Not from this data, but from your other screen. It's not on this screen, right? Or
no, it's not on this screen. In this one would be, the one that most strongly supported was housing meeting Americans with Disabilities Act, with 30%. So if I were to do that one, separate that out, it would come up with some sort of breakdown similar to this. But I didn't do that. I only did it for apartments.
and
But
then
I can
Yeah.
do that for all of them if that's really what you want to see.
And the one after that would be the detached single-family homes, then, if you,
Yeah.
I don't know, Jim, what would be helpful to you in the housing committee?
Well, I don't know about helpful, but a theory I have as to why so many 20 to 29-year-olds oppose apartment buildings in town is, I don't know, I suspect, you know, if you're that age group and you want to buy a home, one thing, but if you want to live in an apartment, you probably want to live in a more
Urban?
vital, exciting place than Southampton, frankly.
Yeah.
Could be.
And then when you're ready to settle down and you want to find something affordable and you want to buy a house, then maybe you want to consider Southampton.
Yeah,
I mean, if we just look at the question about what they want to see the town look like in 20 years, it's rural residential, and apartment buildings and rural residential
yeah,
really don't go together.
yeah, good point, good point. Yeah. Yeah. So when you did this analysis, just so I'm clear on this, Ken, you took the two columns of strongly oppose and number 1 and 2, and or you took strongly support, so you took 4 and 5. So did you eliminate the neutral column altogether, or you put the neutral in there?
No, the way that I did this analysis was, let me go back to that screen.
Because I'm wondering, the neutrals look to be like all like sort of 20%. So I'm wondering if,
I specifically drew out apartments. And
Okay.
so what I did was took the apartments column of all the data and the values that each of those respondents that answered that question,
mhm,
what those values were, and then also the age.
yeah,
So this first column. And then did counts, counting the various values. And these
Right.
were the various values up here. It's not in order because that's not the way that it was presented. But I ordered it so that obviously you're going to read from 1 to 5 rather than the way this is presented up here. But these are the raw numbers, raw counts of those that answered. So there were altogether 28 respondents that answered apartment buildings. Of those, three of them strongly supported that they would like to see the town provide affordable and accessible apartments, I guess. And then 14 strongly opposed. So that was the analysis, was specific to apartments and comparing the data to the age ranges. If you wanted to look at single families, I'd have to do that similar crosstab, counting those, and I would have to do them for each one. And then you'd be able to figure out, maybe come up with some sort of analysis based on that age range. And then so the last one that I did was cross-tabbing. This one was, let me see if I can remember this. This one was those that, this was the land use one. So this tab shows that I chose all of those that answered with community with a mixed use town center and various housing options and commerce in other selected areas. So from that, there were values attached to each of those responses. I created another spreadsheet which separated that because I know that everyone answered. All of these values here are from those that answered that they wanted a mixed use, commercial area, whatnot. And of those, these were the breakdowns of the counts of the values on a scale from 1 to 5, their level of support for each of these strategies for growth. And so of those that answer that, you can see that for 5, establishing design standards, whatever this one is, establishing for a walkable mixed use neighborhood. I think it was a residential and commercial neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was the response. So that was the crosstab for that value, was specific to those that answered that question. And then this screen shows the breakdown of each of those answers. And 1 through 5 being 1 strongly opposed, 5 strongly support. So that, you know, whether or not this tells you anything.
Doesn't, I have a hard time understanding it, frankly. But I may be the only one.
No,
I
you're not.
find the other chart I find, I mean, the basic chart maybe more telling, I don't know.
I think it is more telling.
It's not that one, it's the one above on land use somewhere.
Oh, the one below.
Or somewhere, yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, this would be the one that the planning board or the zoning board,
Right.
they would be particularly interested in, as well as housing. So I mean, they're, you know, out of this whole thing, there's like, you know, 3 or 4 pages of chart that I think are gonna, you know, certain people are gonna glue into. I mean, there's not a whole lot for Concom, for example, or right now. I mean, there's nothing here that really talks so much to them. It's gonna be higher priority for planning board or others to look at, or housing, for example, here.
Right.
So,
Regulatory changes, you know, exploring those things. Obviously, Conservation Commission has their own plan with the open space plan for some of those priorities, and those are acquirement of lands and using park grants to do that. But you're right, Chris, in that, you know, the strategies that we were looking at previously in question 17 is probably more specifically useful for the select board, and this one are for your land use boards. So planning board, maybe the Conservation Commission, depending on that. Jim's committee could maybe, you know, get some insight from this. Yeah. So the crosstab, you know, I don't know if there was any specific crosstab that you wanted to look at and that would produce any, you know, any sort of context for you to prioritize certain aspects of the goals and strategies that exist in your master plan. But yeah.
I don't know, actually, Margaret's the one that used to have some ideas on crosstabbing. I wish she were here to give us some thoughts. I think she's one that's had some experience with that, more than I have. But
I'm thinking about what Jim said a few minutes ago. Are we getting too deep into the weeds on these housing things in terms?
well, I don't think we're in the we've got to present something that somebody can understand. So
True.
even this page, how do we explain this page if we're giving the presentation to select board or to the town? I mean, what are we going to say about what this shows us? I mean, maybe this cross-tabbing is not necessary at all. I don't know. We don't need to create more work for ourselves, but I think we have to have.
I mean, my experience with crosstabs were, you know, when I was in grad school, that was specific to academic papers. I haven't really used crosstabs in survey data, community survey data, because then you're drawing attention to certain populations that may have identified with that. And, you know, is it worthwhile to explain that to the general public that, you know, this subset of the population really thinks, or, you know, this is, what they would strongly support or strongly oppose.
Mhm.
I think aggregating strongly and supports and support and strongly support to show marching orders, I think that's important. So like if you were to take this and maybe just at face value, look at, this one where 45.9% strongly support continuing to educate landowners about options for permanently protecting land. And the aggregate of this, is at least 70%. So, that's something that
Mhm.
that the planning board and conservation commission can look at for
Mhm.
marching orders. So similar to what we did for the select board, if we're to, create columns that show what the top 3 priorities of
Yeah.
this particular set of sections, that could be helpful.
Mhm.
But yeah, so if you'd like me to do that, I think it's pretty quick to do, and we can probably just do that now, showing that this is probably the highest.
I mean, maybe just with a better differentiation of colors, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, and similar to what we did for that. And again, this is going to be what it looks like on a PowerPoint. And so what I sent the committee at around 6 o'clock or 5:30 was.
Why don't we go into take a look at that, and then you
Yeah.
sent another one that had people's comments, right? If we could maybe look at both of those quickly.
Right.
Sure. This one is, so this is what I just put together, which was what I expected a presentation by the Master Plan Implementation Committee via me and members of the committee, what they would be presenting to the select board, which I think, again, what's important is to understand what the committee does and creating the, putting the spotlight on the work of the committee and what the committee has done since the original master plan, followed by this particular study, which is the DLTA project, the description of the project, the work to date. We're refining the and documenting the review of your goals and strategies that you did previous to getting the funding for this project. Our ongoing meetings, select board priorities. That was a document that was shared with me in that last meeting that first meeting that I had with the select board in February. And then obviously the community survey, and then work to follow as a prioritization and understanding of the goals and strategies. It can be refined, however. And then, oh wait, I think I just,
Looks
Yeah,
like
it's a
you've got a
duplicate.
I did it
duplicate
twice.
slide or something in there.
Yeah, it's, I did the slide, but the final report is also part of that.
Is there a place you had talked about where what had already been done with the plan, what had already been achieved from the original plan until now, though, right?
Yeah, so, what I think a future meeting, whether or not it's, and I don't know if it needs to be before the select board. I don't think the select board would want, at least in the next couple of weeks, knowing that it has other agenda items, would want a 30 to 45 minute presentation by this committee. I think it needs to be quick. So I think the work of this committee will be to review what has been done, because you want to show within the final document, what you can move to the bottom or what you can address that has been done, but still should be remaining in the plan or remaining in the report, because it's important to note to your granting agencies that the town is working towards some of these items, right? So whether or not that's presented to the select board in that type of detail is, it's up to the committee. And then obviously I just did some quick survey data. How do you believe Southampton should evolve by 2040? I always think that this is an important value question for those, and you know, more than a third said that they like the way that the community is today. And so in 2040, in 20 years, they expect that it's going to look similar that it does today. And then I created a housing slide. You know, obviously you create some sort of context behind this through what eventually is said in the presentation. I think we can probably do a breakdown of that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think even though that percentage of not satisfied looks somewhat small, to me, I think it would be useful to illustrate the reasons that people felt that it wasn't satisfactory.
Sure. Yeah, and you don't need to list all of them, because in the report you'll have this appendix with literally every entry,
Right.
which would include all of those.
Yeah, but another slide in here wouldn't be bad, maybe to
Right,
talk about.
for some ideas
Yeah.
of why they felt that there was sufficient housing. Another one that I chose with regards to housing was the future living situation. Whether or not it's telling, whether or not it's confirming anything, you know, more than a third don't anticipate requiring a different housing situation, and would still be owning a home in the future in Southampton. Yeah, those are the most.
And then the 55 and plus, that's about 20, almost 19, almost 20%.
Almost 20%.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that could have some implications in terms of,
Yeah.
you know, future development.
And then housing is always a big one. And I think there seems to be this draw with housing because it has, the governor has made it a priority of his administration to increase housing, right? So I think it's important to kind of understand what the context of the town and what their thinking is in regards to this housing, and try to plan within that. But, you know, that we saw the slide earlier. You know, you draw attention to 46% strongly oppose apartment buildings, or the provision of affordable, accessible housing through apartment buildings in town. That's another duplicate slide. Community priorities. This was that one that you identified as one that could be important for the select board. So putting that here, and then this was the rank distribution. You know, as I mentioned, this was the question that after this question came, prioritize the top five. And these were this over here were the distribution of those.
Okay, so what's confusing to me here? Why, what am I looking at, I guess, with the scoring over here? I mean, because you have the repurpose the building up at like number 5 or something, yet it's showing as overall ranking of number 8 here. We said that the safety complex and the water sewer were the bottom 2, but that isn't showing. When I look at this overall rank, that doesn't tell me that.
That's what I had picked up on.
And so
well, because I think the way that the survey program analyzed this was based on the weight of the answers that were chosen. Obviously, acquire land is the top one based on 478 of those respondents choosing strongly support for that one.
right. I mean, but
of those, there were some that chose, you know, these other smaller numbers.
So
So-
what comprises the score? How do you get to the 1952?
I would have to read and see how that,
Okay.
you know,
Don't-
if that,
don't-
yeah, that's obviously going to be a question.
Yeah, because I
But I
guess
have to
it's-
figure that out.
as
I
I'm-
figured that it was based on a weight,
Okay.
but understanding, you know, what comprises that score,
yeah,
yeah, we can.
because
figure
I guess as you look, again, just these last three, you've got 358 in terms of number of rankings. So theoretically, that would be whatever, number 5, and then 6 and 7 in, so those last three that confuse me, I guess is my point. So, I mean, we need to be able to understand this so we can explain it.
Yeah.
Or at least, anyway, so just to understand that better. Okay,
And this was the last slide is land use. So we had the most questions were the land use section. And we can figure out what's important to share here.
yeah,
I think, you know, obviously you're going to want to draw attention to the ones that are under 4 and 5. So those that answered 4 and 5, and we can come up with the aggregate similar to what we had on that other screen that was in purple, as maybe the 3 priorities for the planning board and other land use boards that would be most responsible for many of these. Yeah, so that was just a draft of what I thought would be just kind of a status update for the work of the committee and the survey. Obviously, this would be paired with the report that you got at the last meeting, which is what we've also been alluding to earlier, which is the colorful graphs and tables. That could just be posted on the website. But I think if you're gonna wanna draw on priorities and figuring out how to communicate that,
yeah,
I think you know,
yeah.
we can refine what this looks like, but I think you're just going to want to pick and choose certain data sets and data
Yeah.
points that are important for your
I
community.
think what would be useful though, back in the first one, I think what was interesting to us last meeting, if I recall, was just that, I mean, we saw that there was a high percentage of female, but the age breakout was pretty, or the age and the number of years in town, something was pretty equal amongst them all, which we thought we had a good, you know, we felt we had a good
It
representation.
was the age of the respondents.
Okay,
You had
That
at
might-
least, you had 20% for each.
yeah, so that might be
almost.
something to put in
Yeah.
as a slide. I think.
Yeah, no, I have that. So you
Okay.
don't have it here because this is a PDF of it.
Okay.
But, you know,
Yeah.
in this slide, on the PowerPoint, I did put some of those data sets in there.
Yeah, okay,
But, you know, you just quickly summarize that this was the survey period, you had 896 respondents, and then we identified the questions that, to identify those respondents, like the residency, gender identity, age range, description of household, homeowner, renter, or household member,
mhm,
just to provide some context for that.
right, but
And
putting in
then
that-
of
putting in
those,
that pie
you know,
chart, yeah.
draw attention to what you mentioned, and what I found was actually really neat about the data was that almost 20% of the younger, you know, and you get to the other various age ranges, that there was a good representation of
Yeah.
that.
Okay, all right. Do you
So
want to,
another interesting cross tab
Yep.
view besides age might be income level.
Might be what?
Income level.
We didn't have that as a question.
We didn't ask for household income? Oh,
No.
we did.
No.
Oh.
we did not.
No, there was nothing about income.
Hmm.
No.
Never mind.
Shall we take a quick look at some of the narrative questions or the comments that you said you'd pulled
Yeah,
out?
so what I sent earlier was, so these were directly from the hard copy. You know, and if you look at the raw data, there would be some opportunity for survey takers to put in their comments, whether or not they made sense within the context of the blank option. Because you'll probably find, if you really wanted to delve into the optional question, which was to identify what street you lived on, they would put their street and then they would add, and by the way, don't raise taxes or something. But this one was specific to those that I collected and that Chris collected and gave to me. And so I documented all of the questions from the hard copies. So the 149 hard copies, and then documented 31 comments within those.
And again, if you could make that a little bigger.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And so are you saying that people on the electronic version did not put in comments, or you just didn't capture them?
No, they were captured, but they were captured in there was no opportunity to put just tell us what you want
Okay.
in the survey. So they would put it elsewhere in the survey where they had the ability to add that.
Right.
So these were literally written in the margins, after the optional question, after they fill in what street they're on. So these were just comments that I collected.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I don't think we need to go through all these because we're getting high on our time here, but I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention so we can take a look at this in more detail afterwards here. But taxes came up as an issue by the looks there. I've seen that 2 or 3 times just looking at that. So that's not going to be going down anytime soon either. But
what this says to me is there's some things that clearly, like the difference between bringing more business in, the fact that they're taxed at the same rate as residential.
yeah,
When people don't, I think there's some room here for education to occur so that people have a better understanding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that happens and maybe every time that you guys look at your municipal budget, right? And when I was working in town government, every year there was a talk about the mill rate and is this the year that we're going to create different taxes, different tax rate for commercial properties versus residential? It never happened that way, and it's very difficult. I think there are towns that do that, obviously, and you all know that. But is that something that Southampton has been exploring? I don't know.
There's been no real rationale to have a separate tax rate. I mean, we just don't have enough business to warrant that.
And I believe Easthampton does not have a commercial tax rate, do they?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So they have a single rate. So we'd just be driving what little business we have across the line.
Right.
And
Exactly.
This is what I think people need to understand, so that we don't keep going in that direction, that we have to be thinking of how we're going to fix some of these things, in a different way than just looking at bringing in more business. Not the answer.
Yeah. Okay.
I did see at least one statement in that the 31 comments that you just showed a moment ago, and that was, we have a very nice town center in Easthampton with some businesses so close to us. Basically, why does Southampton need to develop a similar town center that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so
I need a clarification, please. And that is, will the entire report that we looked at last week, will that be available? I think Ken, you just said that would be on the town website or something. Will that report be available in its entirety to everyone?
Yeah, so the aggregate, which is the colorful graphs and tables, that can be available, and I think should be, but it should be probably coming out at the same time that we're ready to present to the committee, unless you
Right, I just wanted to make sure everybody had access to what we have already reviewed.
For sure.
Thank you.
yeah, so I think we have a tentative date for presentation to select board of October 20th. And so I guess the question is to take that slideshow that Ken, you gave us last time, which was that in addition to this PowerPoint, or you're saying this PowerPoint in lieu of that?
No, the PowerPoint should be what is presented to the select board. However, I think the availability and ability to say during the presentation on the town website, there is a comprehensive report of all of the survey questions that were available, and a report of what those responses were. Yeah, I think the PowerPoint is supposed to exist as what is good for the select board and the wider population about a reminder that this project is going on and that there will be a final report, which includes a reprioritization / reimagining of what the goals and strategies are. In that way, we can figure out how to say that. But I don't think it's worthwhile to go through each question and, provide an analysis on them.
Well, why would the select board presentation be done prior to the final report? Would not the select board want to not only see the presentation, but then see the outcome recommendations? And
unless the select, maybe I misunderstood what this presentation to the select board was going to be, was of the community survey, or kind of the work that has been done to date. Obviously, you're going to want to refine or present the work that has been completed, and the work that is yet to be completed with the final report, whether you or not you think it's important to have the select board be part of the process of refining those goals and strategies outside of the master plan implementation committee is another question. But then at the end, you have your report. And do you want to celebrate that with a presentation for the select board or some sort of advertisement that, yay, we finished this report and this is the work of the master plan implementation committee over the year, and and with community engagement, we've come to these conclusions. I assumed that this October meeting was going to be kind of just a recitation of this community survey. But I also thought that it would be important to kind of review the work of the committee as well as present data.
so I'm going to put that out to our two select board members that, given that you have an extremely full agenda all the time, it's been crazy for you all. Do you think the select board wants just a preliminary data presentation, even though it's been massaged very nicely? Or do you think the select board's going to want, all right, where do we go from here, along with the same presentation?
But see, that's where I was saying that I thought that last slide, number 19, was part of what would help the select board understand at least what we're seeing as the priorities. I mean, I don't know. If we're talking about another 40, 50 page report, I think what we talked about was we need something digestible that anybody and everybody can access and understand quickly. I mean, I don't know that I would see anything wrong with giving a preliminary report based on the results of the survey, because that ended at the end of August. And so I think people, that spent their time answering it want to kind of know what it looks like, what happened there. And maybe we don't make a whole lot of conclusions out of it. I don't know. But we need to present the data, I thought, but maybe we don't.
Oh, I think so. I think people are anxious to see the results of it, whether they're, and I would think there should be some kind of presentation to the select board, but even if not, to have the report available. If you don't want to take select board meeting time to make an actual presentation,
Mhm.
I think the report should be disseminated in its entirety as soon as possible.
And this is not the final report.
Right.
No,
this
I
is
mean,
Right,
just the
so
community
I guess,
survey.
right, so I guess that's the question to Ken then. What are we talking about in terms of a time frame for the whole spiel? Because I mean, this, you know, this presentation, I guess I'm thinking we could do on the 20th without it taking more than a half an hour of time, but I don't know, Francine?
No, I see this is a two-step process. I definitely think we need to present the survey data. I
yeah.
think I say two-step because I think between the time that the survey data is presented and people will have a chance to think about it.
Mhm.
And I think that if you want any select board input into the final report, and I don't know if you do, but that would have the wheels turning. I mean, that's kind of like the grist for the mill as far as I'm concerned about new direction.
Mhm.
But definitely, I do think that the final report or some Reader's Digest version of the final you know, be presented, you know, at a select board meeting. What I am always at a loss for is that there really isn't a real mechanism here in town to educate people about what all this stuff is.
Mm.
It doesn't fit into a select board meeting, you know, that kind of presentation. But then, you know, calling these other groups together, sometimes I just don't get the sense that that's how things are done in this town. But I'm trying to still figure out how do you disseminate information?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, absent the approach of being able to congregate in one place, maybe
Right.
it's outside of the select board meeting where we just say, okay, we've scheduled a community meeting to discuss the work of the Master Plan Implementation Committee. You know, that would put the onus on the committee for being responsive to getting more input. Yeah, I mean, there's, I think, many ways to approach sharing the data, whether or not it's at a select board meeting or whether or not it's at a meeting that is open to the public. Well, select board meeting is open to the public, but whether it's
It's a little
specific
less
to,
interactive.
yeah, whether it's specific to that.
Yeah. I mean, I
But
think,
also,
go ahead, Christina.
I was just going to say to get it out online, get the survey results out online so the
Yep.
survey takers
Yep.
review it. And then after, it would seem as though to have that out as soon as possible. And then if there's going to be any public information, you know, any public input, that it comes after people have had a chance to review and digest the information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so to the extent we could, you know, put the survey up on the website in the next week or something, you know, people would have a good 10 days or 2 weeks to look at it before we did any kind of a presentation of it in that PowerPoint form to the select board. But I
And
kind
then
of,
questions, people could ask questions about
right,
it.
right. I mean, we could have a way for people to put in questions and we could gather those somehow. I mean, at one point we had talked about a public hearing or a public information session, whatever we want to call it. I don't know how much people join in on those things. I don't have a good sense of it. I mean, certain people tune into select board all the time, but not very much on Zoom anymore. Most people, if they're tuning in at all, they're tuning in, maybe watching it on TV as it's live. So it's a little hard to know how people get their information in town, quite honestly. So I guess I would say that to the extent that we've got the presentation, pretty much I guess what you gave us last week, Ken, without the raw data. I don't think we put the raw data up, but the set of slides that you gave us last week, that could be something that we could put up on the website and then ready this PowerPoint, you know,
Yeah.
fine tune this PowerPoint for at least a preliminary explanation of what it all means. And
I
we
think
could let people know that, you know, it's on the website. There will be a discussion about it on the 20th, and tune in if you want to hear the discussion. I mean, I don't know.
I think that's a great idea, and so one of the things that I'll have to do is refine those two questions, which show up in the word cloud, because they're, it's not really telling.
Yeah.
But other than that, that survey report, which is the aggregate of all the data, I think is good to go.
Yeah.
So I can
Okay.
just refine those two questions and send that
Yeah.
off, and you can post it
Okay. Well,
without fanfare, and then, or fanfare saying this is the results from your community survey. Listen to what we're going to talk about on the 20th.
yeah, something like that. That would be my thought about it, and knowing that there would be a fuller report later on.
Right.
So that goes back to you again of, what is with your time frame and your schedule on that, Ken?
We'll get it done. That's
Yeah.
where we're at.
Yeah. Okay.
It's, I work based on what the budgets are for these various DLTA projects. This was
Yeah.
the smallest budget, and I've done a lot.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a report, and I thought we've done a great job with the survey. I'm excited for the town and for the town to use the survey data to benefit, their decision making. But the project time is until the end of the year. I intend to, after we meet on the 20th, or whenever that meeting with the select board happens, obviously the takeaway is whatever happens at that meeting, plus, comments that may come in through, your channels, or we create a mechanism for comments to come in from the public. It's all about report writing, and it's all about redefining the goals and strategies based on the community survey, based on our conversations, based on the select board priorities that were shared with me in February, putting that into one document and figuring out a way on how to communicate what the important goals and strategies and the low-hanging fruit, and creating a new timeline for the ones that exist, and any changes within the responsible parties that do that. Now the town has a new committee, an open space committee, looking at, what the natural resources section of the master plan looks like, and seeing if there's anything that aligns with that. You're going to want to include any new committees that formed, and then also identify the grants and the various resources that you have to attain those goals and strategies. And that's my job of putting that together. But I think what will happen at future committee meetings is a review of the document, similar to what we were doing in open space, and recreation plan, and just meeting about that.
Yeah. Okay.
I see that in November, early part of December. And if there is, I probably will have a little bit of funding to do whatever I need to finalize things in the new year, if that's,
We need to. Yeah.
if that needs to happen. But
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, shall we think about, I would say that we need another meeting before we present anything to the select board. Do we agree on that point?
So that means when? I mean, it's October 1st.
I know, and 2 weeks from now would be an open space meeting, so that doesn't work. You've got a
That's
meeting on the 15th. Would the 14th work for anybody? That's a Wednesday.
Hold on, I think it might be a planning board meeting. One moment.
Mhm.
No, it's
I
not.
don't think I'm able to meet on the 14th.
Okay. 13th is a Tuesday.
Is there a select board meeting that night, the Thursday, 15th?
No, it would be a week before the select board meeting.
It's okay with me. I don't know about everybody else.
Fine with me.
Works for me.
All right, let's tentatively go ahead and say we'll meet again on the 13th and get a get a look at what our presentation would be to the select board, and then, yeah, okay. Any other questions and whatever here? I don't want to keep us too long here. Do we want to close off this part on the survey? Are we done discussing things related to this?
I think we are. I think Ken's obviously burned the candle at both ends and up late at night and clearly.
You know, like emails at 11:11.
I noted that. And he obviously didn't say this, but we know this to be the facts, that he loves Southampton more than any of his other
I'm sure he does. He's an honorary citizen now, I think.
I think we should wrap up this portion of it. We got to do a tiny bit more business before we.
That's fine. So one quick, Ken, if you would send me whatever the program is you're using to analyze any of this, and then I can talk to this mystical person that Cindy
The
was talking
program is, how I analyze that was Excel. So if you have an Excel Pro, that's who you're going to want.
Okay.
It literally is the spreadsheet with the raw data.
So that the raw data sheet you took from last time, the last one. Okay.
No,
All right.
not the Excel spreadsheet, which we were, looking at the crosstabs.
Yeah.
If one of the tabs is literally every value for every
Oh,
answer.
okay.
So
I
there's,
didn't look at it.
just
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever I shared yesterday, you can share with that person if you think they're able to
Okay.
help you with any additional analysis that you think you need. But I can help maybe navigate.
Yeah. Well, I can at least present it and say, if he has any thoughts of what could be useful for cross-tabbing, if he knows how to do any of that. So, we don't need to do, useless exercises that don't tell us anything. So I'll just get another opinion as to whether there's anything that he might think of that could be informational. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So with that in mind, thanks everybody for that part. And thank you, Ken, for all the work. I know you've put in extra hours and way beyond the duty that I think was outlined in the grant. So we really.
This is the stuff that I like to do, and I appreciate the committee for the enthusiasm behind it. I think that's important too. If it was just me telling you what to do, that's not fun for me at all.
That's true.
So I really appreciate the back and forth, and it's thoughtful conversation that we're having. So
Yeah, great.
at the very least, it's rewarding for me in that fact.
Great. All right. Let me go back to perhaps the minutes of the last meeting. I'm going to see if I have them here to share. I don't know if I do, but I'll try.
Does Ken want to stay?
Do I need to be here?
You don't need to. No.
Okay.
You
Well,
made your
then
part.
I will talk to you later.
All right.
Good night.
All right. Have a good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Good
Thanks
course.
much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay. Here were the minutes of the last meeting that Cindy's got sent out to us. If we could just take a quick look and see if there were any issues there. I think they were pretty simple and not too complicated.
Pretty straightforward. They look complete to me.
Okay. I can't scroll for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway, whatever. There we go. Can I have a motion to perhaps approve these minutes then?
I'll make a motion.
All right. Anybody second?
I'll second.
Okay, there we go. I'm trying to scroll down. And it was basically just talking about the results that we did here. So it was that was the bulk of the narrative right there. Okay, any further discussion on those? We have a motion and a second. If no discussion, can I have a vote?
Palmer, yes.
Mattson, aye.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor, I.
Sini, aye.
Fishman, aye.
Fowles eye. Okay. Approved. Fine. Great. All right. So the minutes are adopted as written. And I guess our last question is do we finally want to just deal with this election and be done with this? We've been dragging it forever. Well, I think this is the closest we're going to get to everybody being present. So the only thing I think, as we mentioned last time, is both Cindy and I have indicated a willingness to stay on as Cindy as clerk and me, I guess, moving from technically the acting chair to the chair. if you so desire, but we don't have anybody nominated for a vice chair. And I guess we probably should, just in case something comes up and I'm not here, somebody would fill in as the chair, for example. But we need to kind of vote on that slate, I guess, all at once if we can.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
And I'm confused. I did listen to the select board meeting when you were talking about committee assignments. And Francine, are you still with us?
Yeah, I was going to mention to you that, you know, this next set of minutes should reflect that Chris is the liaison from the select board. And we didn't discuss me, you know, we thought, well, we just flip-flop and Chris would be the liaison and I would be at large or not. I could, you know, just not participate. That's
I think we need you at large.
all right. So
Yeah,
then
if-
I'm happy to do that.
If you're
Yeah, I
willing.
agree. It would be great if you could stay on,
Yeah,
Francine.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
think we
no
were-
one said I couldn't. We just
You're
kind of-
right. No, we were just kind of changing hats, I guess, basically the
Yeah.
way it turned out. So
Yes.
that would be great. Thanks, Francine. We would.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Okay.
I think
Of Francine being at large, yes.
yes.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
I think we're agreed with that. All right. Do we have anybody that would volunteer to be a vice chair?
The operative word is volunteer.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, for the most part, it doesn't have much to do. I mean, it would be only when the chair is absent. And I think our meetings are going to be, you know, once we get to this point, we may not have a whole lot of frequent meetings other than going through the chapters, if that's what Ken is thinking about, like the open space update plan. That may be, you know, again, the once every 3 weeks. I can't see anything more frequent than that once we get past the select board presentation offhand. But
So can I also, as clerk, be vice chair?
I was thinking that would be good.
is that possible? I have no idea if that's possible.
Well, and I, let me just make this suggestion. If find ourselves that you would have to be the chair, I would volunteer to be the clerk for that meeting as a substitute to take the notes.
So the precedent for that is that select board just recently did their elections, and we have a chair, and we have a vice chair, two different individuals, and the chair also agreed to be the clerk. So obviously there is this crossover. So I think it's possible
What?
to, I volunteer
No.
to be a
The chair is not the clerk of the select board?
did I say select board? I meant planning board. I apologize.
Oh,
Planning
okay.
planning board. I apologize for that.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
So I volunteered to be the vice chair. I in Chris's absence, which I know she's so committed that that'll never happen. And if she gets sick, I'm going to bring chicken soup immediately to her house.
There you go.
So, and then if Francine, if for some reason I was the chair and you just took the minutes that night,
Right.
that would be great. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll
all
do
right.
that.
All right, with that in mind, so the proposed slate would be Cindy Palmer as clerk and vice chair, and Chris Fowles as chair. And when and if the vice chair needed to take over, then Francine would fill in as clerk for that evening. Is that where we have before us? And how does everybody feel about that? Do we have a motion to go in that direction?
So move.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion about that?
Just a
Anybody?
question.
Yeah.
Just a question, because after we vote tonight, I'm either going to change it myself on my town government and update that whole section. But I don't know that I would put that Francine is stating she'll be the secondary clerk. I just think that'll be kind of an understanding of all of us. Okay. So that's
That's
my
fine.
only
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if you can't do it yourself, in terms of posting it, you know, just send a note to Lucy so that we have it.
I think I can do it on my town government. She
Yeah.
will do it on the town website.
Oh,
That's
okay.
slightly different. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so just let her know we made those changes, yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, so with that in mind, could we have a vote, please? All those in
Tishman, aye.
favor?
No, Tishman, aye.
Palmer, aye.
Nancy,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's enough.
Taylor, I.
Okay, and Fowles eye. All right, so be it. We have it. All right. I'm assuming we have no other new business to discuss unless anybody has anything urgent.
Well, I'm just going to ask everybody to remember how important it is to vote in this election. I'm not concerned that any of you are not going to vote, but I'm telling everybody I know how critically important it is, and also to tell people you know, perhaps in other states, how critically important it is to vote in this election. And the second thing is, we do have a town meeting coming up on October 17th, special town meeting. And it's got a few topics on there that, well, all of it's important, but please spread the word and attend, because there's some pretty critical elements on that. So that's my 2 cents.
It shouldn't be that long. It's going to be only 8 articles, so it should be a relatively short meeting. Okay, it's going to be at 10 o'clock on that day.
October 17th, yes.
Right.
And also October 17th, beginning at noon, Town Hall is open for early elections.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, how about a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. All right. Everybody in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
All right. Let's call it. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. We went a little bit
night.
longer than I
Thank
thought,
you.
but thanks for your attention and being here tonight. I think we've done some good work, and hopefully we'll see some good results that we can present to the town and have them feel like they can move forward with something. So thanks.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ending at 9 o'clock.